Hello and welcome to Module 3 Wrap-Up. So there were a couple of issues. There's one issue with the specifically with the quiz. I think it's coming up, the third quiz, was that yes, we do have to have a certified EMR in order to meet meaningful use. So that is a correct statement, and I think that the first couple people that took that may have answered it correctly, but the answer was actually wrong in the quiz. So I've recalculated that as well as updated the answer to be correct. The second thing that I wanted to talk about was the position papers and the quiz. So for the first position paper and quiz, the first position paper was 78 points out of 90, or an 87% on average, and the quiz was a 95% on average. However, the second position paper, a little bit easier topic, I would assume, certainly not as much detail required, was an average of 76 points, or about an 85%, and the quiz was a 91%. Now, I understand maybe the material is a little bit more difficult, more challenging, which result in the quiz dropping, although there were multiple attempts allowed at that. But I'm a little concerned about the things that I'm seeing in the position papers. It's not necessarily the content, because as long as you go through the assignment and you hit all the topics, you receive 40 out of 40 points. As long as you put your information together in a coherent manner, you're going to receive your 25 points. What I'm really seeing is that people are still using the textbook to source. And this is a 4-year-old textbook. So whatever information you're putting in there may not be relevant today. So that would not be an appropriate source, number one. Number two, I always tell people never ever use your textbook, because you have no idea how old the textbook is, how old the information is, nor does it show very much initiative to just open up your textbook. So we want you as educators to search on the internet, to go into the library, to find other resources other than the textbook, because this textbook is going to be fairly obsolete except for maybe the system design and implementation, maybe some of the history behind this, but other than that, you need much more relevant and recent information to work off of, especially when you're out in the real world with your job and somebody says, what is X? Well, we need to know what it is today, not what it was 4 or 5 years ago. So that's something that I want you to be very careful of. The second thing is, please read your papers before you submit them. You catch a lot of the grammar errors simply by reading them. You can see when you've used the same word repeatedly 3 or 4 sentences in a row, or that if you're missing a punctuation, make sure that you're looking at those sentences and the grammar behind those. Also, the electronic health record, EHR, is automatically spell checked to or auto-corrected to HER in Microsoft Word. I know that. It happens to me all the time. But we have to be cognizant of that, and when it happens, change it back to EHR. So I know that if you type that in and you keep on typing and then you submit the paper, you didn't proofread it because you would have caught that immediately. So those are the silly kind of questions where we're losing typically anywhere from 4 to 12 points just on effort and grammar and sentence structure and readability. And right there, 10 to 12 points, that takes you from a B to an A. So please be careful when you're writing your papers. It's going to be very important to you in your career, not only finishing up this program, but also if you go into graduate work or if you go out and work in real life, that you're able to articulate your points, that you're able to write cohesively and effectively, that you're succinct with what you're talking about, but with sufficient depth to be able to give the reader the information that they need. If you hand a CFO, if they'd stop you in the elevator and say, what is this topic? I just heard about this in the C-suite. Can you give me a briefing on it tomorrow? You're not going to quote 15 sources. You might quote some statistics and say where you got it from, but you're not going to have what he wants is, or she wants, is a comprehensive and succinct of whatever that topic was, in such a way that makes sense. So think about that before you turn your papers in. You do have a few more chances to do that. Other than that, the pace is slowing down a little bit as far as the amount of material the book provides. There'll be more resources that are on the internet coming up, and video resources. So we're going to be moving away from the text simply because the topics that we're going to be talking about in the future, for example, data security and cybersecurity, disaster recovery, that's not even touched on. Might be touched on in the book, but it's not like a chapter devoted to that. So there'll be a lot of external resources devoted to that. Thank you very much, and keep plugging away. You guys are doing great.